Would you like to take a spooky walk with me? Let's go. We're gonna take a walk to a place that's dark and spooky. This could be kind of fun and creepy and kooky. I look out up ahead, but my eyes can barely see. We'll soon be in tall grass. Stay together, follow me. Whoa! Did you hear that? A black cat and a scary bat.
And its founder is Laurel Black. We're going to have if you read the description, you'll see that we're going to have a presentation from Grit, and they'll report some of the findings they have for this year, as well as from some other investigations they have. During their presentation, they will be playing some audio, and they'll explain to you what you're listening to. But we're going to ask that you remain very quiet so that everyone can hear the audio as good as possible.
Either that or we've solved the problem and you'll all be laughed at your seats by this people.
That's right. So we'll be underway in just a few minutes. Thank you everyone for coming.
Incredibly tight schedule tonight as we look at it. I feel like 5 minutes to get from here when we're done to your first location. And we're going to zip you through. As Carl said, I'm Laura Black. I'm a professor of English at IBPA. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. People who are speaking with me tonight.
Hi, I'm Sharon Layton. I'm a behavioral coach and counselor. I specialize in crisis work, and I'm one of the resident sensitives.
My name is Katie Lovett. I go to Seton Hill University.
And she's helped us out with a number of investigations. And my husband is this weird man with the beard working around here. We call him the ghost killer. If you have a ghost in your house and you want to get rid of it, just let him walk through. Okay? We never let him go into investigations because that's the sure end of anything ghostly. But he's an historian. He works as the archivist for Seton Hill. So he does a great job of helping interview people afterwards and find out history and driving us around and running equipment, all the things that need to happen. So today we're calling this Immortal Irwin. I think we've investigated 14 locations and growing, I hope. So we're going to talk very quickly about some of these. The first thing, because we want to talk mostly about what's actually happened here. And I'm guessing that almost everybody here watches ghost hunting shows. Or has been on ghost tours or on ghost investigations and trying to get into very relevant places. I just want to say that our protocol, I think, is far more professional than what you usually see on television. We don't swear at ghosts, we don't curse them out, we don't run around screaming, yelling, demon, demon. In fact, we've never come across one. We are always polite. We do our very best to control the environment so that we know that when we get some evidence, it's actual evidence. We do a good job debunking. We spend a lot of time working with our sensitives to make sure that what we're getting from sensitives is something we can possibly historically document and verify. And then we like to talk to the homeowners and business owners afterwards to see how close we were. But we don't do any, investigate any historical background in advance. Because we don't want to influence the people. They come in cold. All I know is I'm going to 4 locations. That's it. When we get here. And then we are told at that point, so there's no scoping things out first and figuring out what other people have come up with. I probably don't have to tell you all what a ghost is, but I think the most important thing to remember here is that ghosts don't necessarily have to be one, a dead person. They can be an object. There are ghosts of objects, and in fact, we'll play you an EVP of an object that is actually making some noise, but was clearly not in the room. The other thing to remember is that when you see a ghost, they have created the objects they carry with them. So if they were buried in a fine suit and they're wearing something they always wore when you see them, they had to recreate that object on your body. And so to think about all the things that ghosts can do is really a kind of important aspect. As somebody who's not very sensitive, occasionally I have some sensitivity. I'm going to turn this part over to Shannon.
Alrighty, so sensitives and psychics. Basically, what's the difference? Well, psychics tend to be recognized as looking at the future, reading your auras, giving you advice about things that are going on in the present right now. A lot of people like to use the terms interchangeably. But the way we look at sensitives are people who have an ability to contact, tune into, interact with things that are not of the normal realm that everybody else would usually see. For the purposes of ghost hunting, we tend to look at more along the lines of mediumship, where you can come into contact with something that might be paranormal. When it comes to whether or not everybody's sensitive, I like to think of it as being on different radio stations. Everybody has different amounts of ability. Some can harness that and build it over time. Some may start out with a lot of it and it disappears over time. Some are born with it being pretty strong and they keep it that way. But you have to learn how to tune into it when you want to. So like a radio station, different people can be tuned into different stations. So in my case, just because I walk into a place and I might not sense or feel anything there, it doesn't mean there isn't anything there. In the same way, just because I might get a lot of things there, doesn't necessarily mean that there is something there, because as a sensitive, we have to be careful about being responsible and trying to make sure that, you know, that movie I watched yesterday isn't influencing what I'm thinking I'm experiencing today. So as somebody from a science-based field, I try to be very careful about walking that line between what I believe is really paranormal and what I can admit is probably just me, because you could run into imagination if you're not careful. Now, with regard to how Irwin uses sensitives,
We use them like a tool, like these meters that I have up here. Maybe they'll go off while we're talking, that'll be fun. And maybe Sharon will pick up on something at the same time. So when we create reports, the reports that go back, when we're done with an investigation, about 25 pages long, they include everything that we experienced, every piece of evidence that we can come up with. But we also say, well, okay, our sensitive reported this. We have nothing to back it up, nothing. So we don't just assume that this thing is for real and is there all the time. We try to have multiple layers of evidence so that if fortunately we have another sensitive maybe who we go through in groups, and we don't interact with each other as we go through. So we have no idea what group 1 has gotten here in group 2. So maybe somebody in group 2 has got the same thing. So now there's a little bit more evidence. If we have meters going off at the same time, if this person is saying, here's what's happening, and they ask a question, I say, can you flash left to yellow for yes or red for no? And we start beginning to get responses. And the medium is telling us, well, here's what's happening, here's what the person is saying. Then we have another level. If we can get a photograph or something on video, great. But as the person who doesn't usually pick up on things, I spend a lot of time asking questions. Can you see the clothes? How old is this person? What makes you think that? What age period is this from? Why do you think that? All kinds of things that they're not focusing on, but I need them to.
and as one of the sensitives, I love to be questioned. I love it when somebody doesn't just take my word, because that makes me work hard. It makes me really think about whether or not the things I'm getting really are legitimate. Apart from that, just to clarify, sensing things, paranormal things, sensitive can either visually see something with their eyes, they might see something in their mind, they might hear something, they might just feel or know something. So it can be any combination of different types of sensations that somebody's getting, and it's their job to kind of sort through that and figure out what is relevant to the situation.
We spend a fair amount of time on this because the stories that we have are mostly from our sensitives. So we want you to understand where they came from and how we have them. So Irwin itself. These are the places we have investigated so far. Station Taylor, the Lamp Theater, the police station, not the actual police station, the basement, the jail, the old one. Prison Katie's Country Closet, the Cornell Grill, First Church of Christ, Cafe Supreme Brandy's, the borough offices, Michelle's Bella Boutique, Back Alley Gym, the Oil Order of Moose Lodge, Highlands Meadery, and Burger, which we originally thought was meatery next to the Burger. We thought, oh, we're going to go to a butcher's shop. And Botanica, which became Flow. So we've been to some of these twice. Now, we have notable experiences from all of them, and I'm a big believer in choice, but you have to make a very quick choice right now. Would you like to hear more about the locations you're going to tonight, or do you want to pick something interesting off any of these? Tonight. Let's see hands. All right, good. Good tonight. All right. Let's start with the First Church of Christ. We're going to run through some of these, and then we're going to stop, because we're watching time, so we can play some EVP for those voices. We only have 3 here from Irwin, and we have some from other locations that are really kind of fascinating. So I put them in here. We have these lovely sheets so that we don't forget everything, because one of our sensitives is actually teaching in South Korea at the moment, and so I'm going to fill in for what she got at the time. So one of the things the first thing that was experienced as she came into the Church of Christ was, on her part, a singing greeter. It was a lovely old lady wearing a pink dress. She had gray, soft, curly hair. She's about 5'3", 5'4". The sensitive couldn't see much of her face, but she sang the whole time that investigative group was there. And she alternated between "You Are My Sunshine" and "There's a Circle Being Broken." That would make me crazy, actually, as a sensitive. I have to listen to that endlessly. But she was apparently very sweet. And the reason, we have another piece of evidence, because you felt something on the back of your back just as we came through the lobby entrance way and returning to the fellowship hall. She was convinced there's something behind it.
Yeah, I was going into like the actual church area where the worship is, and they were on the other side of the room, and I thought they had followed me because I felt someone standing behind me, so I turned around and like they were on the other side of the room. So.
We also had K2 meters and this ghost throw meter, which will make a lovely beeping noise if you move it too quickly. And they went off like mad as we first came in, and then it died down and stopped, and then there was no more. So it wasn't coming through any ambient electricity, it wasn't coming through wiring. And then it started back up again as we were leaving. And so we think that we have this lovely breathing moment there. How about
Charlie.
we have an EVP from Charlie, hopefully.
Yes. I had the pleasure of meeting a spirit there named Charlie. It's kind of funny because the person who was guiding us through also happened to be named Charlie. And I didn't know that at the time, but Charlie was an older individual, probably around in his 60s or so. And I kind of got the feeling that he was floating above us. He had to go with money. He had to go pay his money. And I was so excited to be seen, because I was actually seeing him, but I was having a hard time getting his position. It was like he was floating, and he kept saying, I got there, I got there, I got there. And from what he gave me, it was that he had had a difficult life with issues with alcoholism. And while he spent a lot of time volunteering and working in the church, he was really worried about what his afterlife would be like. So while he didn't describe and give a lot of information, and I don't believe in asking a lot about the afterlife, because I think you're probably not supposed to know certain things until you get there, he just kept saying, I got there, and he was very happy about it. So whatever it was, he was happy. And I quite enjoyed it.
There were at least two other women that the other sensitive picked up on, and one we call the kitchen ruler. This woman was carrying a tray. She had her hair, it seemed to be pulled up in the back, and like maybe held to the comb because it was kind of more loose and fluffy on the top of her head. She was wearing a yellow dress, and she just kind of ruled that kitchen. Like if you were in her way, you were in deep trouble. Like, get out, I own this place. She was wearing a dress that seemed to be from the 1950s or early 60s, but she herself was older. And one thing to remember is that ghosts can show you whatever age they want you to see. I'm coming back hot and young. So you might have somebody who like died in their 80s, but they're showing you themselves in their 30s or 40s for whatever reason. And so sometimes that makes identifying difficult if nobody remembers what they looked like at that point in time. But there was also another woman that we nicknamed Mrs. Claus. She had these little glasses, she was tiny, she was plump, she had gray hair. She was in the fellowship room, and her name was two syllables, and the sensitive got the impression that it was like Ethel, something like Ethel. She had a 1940s style short dress that was, and she had over an apron, and she turned to the sensitive and said, hello, dear. Now, not all ghosts are aware that they are dead. They are continuing to do what they did. They don't even know that they changed for them. They are seeing the church, the house, the home, the business the way it used to be when they were there. They don't even know that people are investigating. But some of them are not residual. So she is kind of in between. She used to help with the children, and she used to clean. Even though it was her church, she also cleaned it. And she was probably there in the 1940s at the age that she was showing herself, and she might not have made it into the 50s. She said that although she seemed healthy, there was something off about her. She was sensing it. It made her feel like the woman was going to die shortly after she was showing herself to the sensitive. She grew up on a farm. She wasn't connected to a farm at the time she was showing herself. Her son continued to go to the church afterwards. He had dark hair and a job that was related to money, like accounting or banks, and he was always working with money and numbers. She worked in the previous nursery, and that work is what she calls her slice of heaven. She still comes out of it now. The nursery is still there for her, and she follows people around the church, especially children.
I do want to note that with the church, there was something interesting down in the basement. There's a back room there that has all kinds of interesting equipment in it. And while I was in there, I was hearing what basically was an invisible choir. I just heard so many people singing at once, but I couldn't identify the song. So I started humming it along to Charlie, who was giving us the tour there, and he identified it as Rock of Ages. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't know the song, so I thought, oh, okay, that worked out well.
There were other people there, but we want to make sure we cover your 4 locations. So Burger and the Highlands Meadery. Now remember, sometimes it's difficult for us to control the environment, and these were both working businesses, and we were there on a night with noise, so getting any tape recordings that we could really feel comfortable saying with evidence would be difficult. But the first thing that one of the sensitives said was, "No one is happy here," when she got down in the basement. It's a very, very busy location. The first thing she noticed is there's a man that was like running all over the place and trying to hide. And she called him like the man who'd been in a fight. He was yelling, "Get out, get out, get out." He was very angry. He had a nice brown striped 1950s style suit, a dress shirt, no vest, dark hair, olive skin, and a deeper voice. And he's just really agitated. He had been in some big fight. It was a love triangle involving his wife. And then, I don't know where the fight took place to start with, but it spilled out from whatever building that was there out onto the street. There were guns involved, but she's not sure that anybody was actually shot. But she did get the sense that he decked somebody really hard. And he kept saying, "He had it coming, he had it coming" to her. His movements around the basement, even if people can't see him, would probably make those people who come down to feel very anxious and very jittery. They would sense that anger and that.
For my part, I had fun in the basement. Well, it depends on what you consider fun. I got to speak with a very interesting individual, a young Italian man who gave me the name of Angelo Ferretti or Ferrietti. He's in his 20s, brown hair, wears overalls, and he had a German Shepherd with him. Actually, the first thing I tuned into when I got there was the German Shepherd. And this young individual was kind of there, but when he was in his life, he gave the impression that he wasn't necessarily supposed to be there. He was hanging out underneath the building in the basement. He was very charming, very friendly. He actually caused a lot of K2 activity for us. The way we had it, yes, we had myself and one other investigator, and we were picking up energy signals in between us. Not on the floor, not on the ceiling, just floating in between us. And when we would ask questions, we would specifically say, "Please make this machine go up to orange," or "Please make it go up to red. Please stop it right now." And we would get immediate responses constantly. He was kind of cheeky. He liked to say that he likes to tease women and scare women that go down into the basement by touching their necks. They get a sensation. And for my part, when I turned around, I've never had this happen before, but I got a very distinct feeling of being impressively goosed. And when I said, "Hey, quit it," he said, "No, that's just my dog." Now, at this point, we got so much interaction. We got so much interaction in an area of the building where there was no electricity, nothing that should be able to give us interaction. We said, "Okay, can you do something big? Something that will really let us know that you're here." And at that moment, right next to our feet, we heard what sounded like the equivalent of a large chair or something being moved very loud, and just about gave us a fit. And at the same time, the recording equipment was done and it wouldn't work again. So I didn't get a recording of it. All I know is I got a mini heart attack and probably lost a couple years of my life.
Remember one other person down there, and we called him the Big Butcher. He's a great big guy with a really violent temper. Like on the surface, he's really jovial. Like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? How you doing?" But he hates it when people call him on something. He had a really bad problem with women. Like, they have their place, and it's definitely lower than him. He showed the psychic himself backhanding a woman. He had a nickname like Big Whatever, you have to fill it in. And he was wearing a white shirt and he had a white apron. And she got the impression that he had worked either there somehow or nearby as a butcher. he had been intimidating a little girl ghost that was down there. She was puppy. Her name is Little Alice, and she has a baby doll she carried around named Bella. She has a little jumper dress just below her knees, and little pigtails that go quite to her shoulders. She's about 5 to 7 years old, and she died from some kind of fever that could have been easily treated now. Probably in the 1940s. She barely made it into school, but she did get into school anyway. She liked, as she put it, a nice old lady that used to work in the building above the basement, who used to give her some treats from time to time. And that woman also had an apron and gray hair. Little Alice lived in a 2-story house with a small front porch. At the time, there were no other houses next to it. But apparently it has now been built up around it. It was considered the outskirts of Irwin at the time. Her mother was named Lucinda, and she also attended the First Church of Christ, so there was a link between them. She was really afraid of this big butcher guy. But, you know, at this point, the sensitive said, no, you can go, you can leave, I'm right here, you can take this. And apparently she left and went upstairs to the meter. People aren't always happy when ghosts move, because they move to places they may not want to. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Later we did discover that apparently over that basement was once a large grocery store, so they could explain the butcher, they could explain the one in the trees or in the moving to Botanica and Flo. So we visited there twice. Once it was Botanica, and later, most recently, it was Flo. And one of the sensitives in the very back area picked up on the dirty old man. At that point, Crystal Novak was helping coordinating all of those. And he really liked that she was there. In fact, he really liked that there were 2 female investigators. He had suffered apparently a head injury of some time ago, and he'd done maintenance, but I felt this is one of the few people that I did pick up on that. He had a very specialized job, and I had a picture of him very stiff, like lying like this, and I didn't know what he did. But I got a sense that either he had to lay that way or somebody had to lay that way, and he had something to do with that. Later we learned that was at one point a funeral, and so that would make sense. There's also an angry young man back there in his 20s or 30s, and we think he's connected to what we experienced in the apartment above.
So with the apartment above, we had some sounds. We were hearing some interesting sounds, which you'll hear on the EVP afterwards. As we were downstairs, we heard what sounded like a lot of loud moving upstairs, and came to find that there was nobody upstairs during that time frame. So that was really interesting. And as we went upstairs, we got a lot of interesting experience with regard to the angry young man. A lot of people who went up there had the feeling of someone who had been in part of an abusive relationship, and he kind of took pleasure in being mean to his girlfriend, you know, knocking her down and laughing about it, or saying things like, because she had finished high school, he's saying like high school's for losers and things like that. Along the same time, a lot of the investigators, at least a few of us, experienced the feeling of an anxious woman, somebody who was very hyper, nervous, worried about her environment. She was in her mid to late 20s, and it just was this very anxious feeling like she had to keep moving. We also experienced what we were describing kind of as a black energy mass, possibly an individual. It was more residual, and it felt male and high anxiety in that environment. It really made multiple of us feel very uncomfortable.
And finally, we have Brandy's on Main, which we also investigated as a Cafe Supreme. So upstairs in the main eating section, there's a guy that we nicknamed the Schmoozer. And he wears a white t-shirt and he has an apron, and he was going down the booths, like checking on everybody. And then he turned around and yelled at the kitchen, like, hey, give her a refill over here. Speed this up. The sensitive said that he had a distinct way of speaking, maybe a slight accent. He might have been a manager. His hair was short, almost white. He was possibly in his 60s, maybe his late 50s, but he probably died later in his 70s. His skin was very pale, but she got the impression that it would get very, very dark and tan in the summertime. The woman who was yelling out in the kitchen was wearing like a pink dress or uniform, and the sensitive got the idea that she gave that as good as she got. So there'd be a lot of yelling back and forth between the dining area and the kitchen area. Downstairs, there are at least 2 bartenders still down there in the basement. One of them is a grumpy guy who appears to be from the 1980s. He doesn't like to interact with people. But then there's another guy, we call it the roving bartender, because unlike most ghosts that tend to stay in one spot, this guy moves around town. For him, it's the 1950s. So he's not a residual, but that's what he loved so much that he sort of recreates it for himself. He loves living people, he loves dead people. He just loves everybody. He does, he loves the social aspect, that's what he got out of it. His name is either Johnny or Jason. And he has dark hair, he's tall, he's well built, he shows himself in his early 30s. He has light brown eyes, and he's pale. He wears a white shirt, suspenders, and a bow tie, because that's what he likes. So you get the sense that that was a required uniform. He wears dark pants, and his own favorite friend, see, they can just tell you all kinds of stuff, and you think to yourself, when I'm dead, what important message will I send? No, I will send a message, I really like whiskey on the rocks. I don't know what I'll be able to send. He bartended in many locations in town, so somebody might know him. His favorite bar isn't here anymore. It was one that had a lot of veterans. He was a veteran, apparently, of the Korean War. And he liked a bar that was something like a 2-block triangle between Carl's location and the Moose Lodge. And he wanders around, he knows ghosts in other buildings, and he knows the bartender, current bartender in the Moose Lodge. So he's a busy guy.
We also got one that we're describing as a shadow figure. Multiple investigators in the downstairs area have seen in one of the hallways what appears to be the shape of a person, just a shadow that moves in and out. Not dangerous, doesn't seem violent or aggressive, but that people will probably sense when they come into the environment. And for my part, one that we actually don't have listed, but it's one of my favorites, was an individual on the dance floor who was doing a jig with one leg. He had 2 legs, he only danced with one leg. And he was very tall and thin and lanky, wearing kind of a cab driver's hat, and just stood there doing a jig with one leg, and I found it rather enjoyable.
I think he was pretty drunk. So one of the questions is, if you don't have a physical body, how can you still be drunk in the afterlife? But I guess you can do whatever you want to do in the afterlife if you still want to be drunk. There's also a little boy who runs around, and he's been spotted by several investigators, and apparently by some people at the cafe itself. Toward the back of the eating area, back where the stairs down. He does run all over the place, and sometimes the schmoozer guy will yell at him upstairs. He likes to be on the stairs, coming down toward the entrance, and go directly down to the bar area of the basement. He likes to cook people. Like, he will come out of a wall, because he's a ghost, while they're on the stairs. And it's something that Harry felt was incredibly jittery. He likes to run around in the area by the bar downstairs.
I couldn't stop moving. I was just running from like one end of the bar to the other. Like, I didn't know why I was so angry.
Yeah, I guess she was okay. We wanted to put him like a little fidget spinner someplace to see if anything would happen. But then we both felt like it was suddenly very calm. So we assumed that he would. All right, so we're going to play some EVPs for you. We have 15 more minutes. Now, EVPs are really frustrating because what you see on television, I don't know how they get those things, but they've been doing this for 15 years. And they have perfect EVPs. And they know them immediately. When we say that there are occasions, there's someone playing here tonight and you can understand it without having headphones, without even telling you what's said, without putting it on the screen. Then there's some you get 2 out of 3 words, or 2 out of 4, but those other 2 words can change everything. And then there's this level of class C that's so frustrating because you can hear the words, you can hear whispering, you know somebody's there, but you can't get out, even in the east. So we have a few here from Irwin. Now, this one is, we were getting ready to leave the downstairs flow, and we hear the banging upstairs, and we mentioned it. Now, you don't usually hear EVPs as they're occurring. We don't acknowledge them on tape because we never actually heard it, but there it is on tape. This is one of those cases we heard.
This was the one where we found out later there was
No one was up there. We'll see how
Watch
this
out, your ears will not.
Can we walk around? There's people moving around upstairs. Yeah, it sounds like it's right above me over here.
Let's try that in the middle. You hear those big thumps. That's what we were hearing over our head, and no one was up there.
Can we walk around? There's people moving around upstairs. Yeah, it sounds like it's right above me over here.
In the Cafe Supreme basement, we were working with Crystal. Not too long after we came into the basement, you're going to hear somebody in that says, Christoph or Crystal. Ghosts know people. For example, when we were at the Moose Lodge,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
We didn't talk about him.
well, Chairman Foster was talking about how he liked one of the servers named Sherry. And actually, we had no idea who anybody Sherry was, but Sherry actually appeared while we were there. And we said, well, we don't want to hear any stories from you, we don't know who you are, but go away. And as it turns out, that was Sherry.
She had been working in the kitchen that evening. We didn't know her. We didn't know anybody was there. So when we asked Chairman Foster, the spirit, who do you like here in the building? And he said, Sherry.
So this week, Sharon got this one, just as she came in to that lobby area.
This was Charlie in the Church of Christ, I believe, responding when I was saying, he's kind of high up above. I'm not sure where he is.
And we hear him say, but here I am.
But I'm getting the individual high up. But I'm getting the individual high up.
That's all we got. We did get one, a small one, as we came up to that apartment on the second floor of the floor. Just as we came to the door, we can't make out what he says, and we kept trying to get it so we either blast you out, or we weren't enhancing it too much or messing with it too much. But we can't make out quite what it says, and it's a very high voice, and she had just said, oh, I really don't like it here. And then we opened the door and stepped in, and we got some little high voice saying something to us. So I picked a few more from some areas right around us here, from some of our other investigations. We've been a lot of places. The Major Stokes restaurant is recently opened in the Green here, and we had a chance to get in while they were renovating it. We went way up into the attic, and there was this really creepy baby doll there. And as everybody knows, who's ever watched any horror-related things, baby dolls are never good. So we're talking about this baby doll, and Sharon and I disagree completely on what this says. But you can hear another man whispering over us.
Yes.
Okay, so you found a creepy baby doll. So does the metaphor refer to the child?
We're working with this
I
one.
think that's the equalizer.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so
you found a creepy baby doll. So does the metaphor refer to the child?
So I hear you're actually, and then possibly creepy. But Laurel hears something completely different.
I hear him whispering saying, well, originally, when and then it stops. You don't always get a full sentence, you know, always that lucky, just get a couple of words. We'll go one more time.
Yes.
Okay, so
you found a creepy baby doll. So does the metaphor refer to the child?
This is a very short one. This is actually somebody that I was seeing in a funeral home in Harmony. No one was laid out, we were not disrespectful in any way. I can't say that I would think that would be really cool myself, but we do want to be respectful and professional. So I was up near the caskets, and what I was seeing was a man who was older, bald, had a really crisp white shirt on. He's kind of shaped like a football. And he had black pleated pants that, no offense, many older men were like up to here. And so it was up to here. But at the same time, I get this mumble, and it sounds like a younger man, and it's like I'm only here to mourn, I'm only here for mourning. It's very quick. I'm only here for mourn. There was no non-burning at the time. But historically, several decades ago, very sadly, a nun was making some tea and was wearing a nightgown and caught on fire. And raced quite some distance to a pole where he was trying to get some help. And ultimately, she died from those burns. My husband was discussing this story with another woman, and you're going to hear a man say something we've not yet figured it out, but it's very clear that there is another person speaking at the same time they are.
So if you're trying to you imagine your home
It sounds like call me and I know, but that doesn't quite make sense. You want to hear it again? And we're open to suggestions. Oh, well, that would be really disrespectful in front of the nun, but I can't say I'm Could be, oh yeah.
That's what I hear. Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. We spend hours doing this. We have nothing else to do in our lives. Okay, so the Homer City Cemetery, two people are talking, a woman and a man, and she's explaining how to use a camera. Oh yeah, if you want to do this, it was dark, so they're saying, I can't see. If you want to do this, if you want to do that, you're going to hear a very snarky, very loud little girl chip in saying, maybe you wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, if you want to do it or not,
Now, they didn't even hear that. Here's some loud ones coming up. No one responds because we didn't hear it. It's on the tape. They were apparently there, talking, but we don't hear it.
Oh, yeah, if you want to do it or not,
These first two here, Keith Hall no longer stands, which is very sad. He went to IBPA, Keith Hall, alive. Because they just tore it down a couple of years ago. It's probably the most haunted building I've ever been in. And it's loaded with kids. And this doesn't mean kids die there. There's no record of any child ever dying in Keith Hall. But it was the laboratory school for years, and people had incredibly fond memories of this location. Before they tore it down, they had a reunion, and they came from all over the world, literally, to come back and see it before it came down. Now, this particular night, I had a 12-year-old nephew with me, and apparently this little girl, who we call Irwin, followed him around all night. There are at least 3 or 4 EVPs from her. She's quite loud. She has this echoey little voice. And so we got all of these on his tape recorder. In this case, he's asking about batteries for a camera. The next one, he has taken a picture and it's unfocused, and he's talking about it.
With a flashlight. Oh, I'm wrong.
Kind of can't miss that. It's not a In another time, another period, we were actually running a ghost hunting class and had a stereo camera put up. So it had this really weird kind of lens. And you're going to hear a little child say something, but you can't make out them. This next one may be the same little girl in the first two, because she has that echoey quality to her voice. We were running called Boo for Booby. It was a breast cancer event on ghost hunts. And the person comes in, the guy says, "You have to make sure nobody's in here." And she yells out, "Is anybody here?" And you hear a little voice. It sounds like it's saying, like, "Nobody is in here and nobody sees me." I just know that nobody's here.
Make sure no one's here. We're gonna shut it down the other side.
You want to hear that again?
Make sure no one's here. We're gonna shut it down the other side.
On another one of these investigations, a group of women are walking back. They're talking about these coming in at kind of switch locations and scared them by doing that. But as they're walking, it's freezing cold. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and you can hear a small child. We think she says, "Come save me." You're going to hear her whimper again, and it's the same volume, so she's keeping up with them. Certainly, if there was a little child there in our normal conditions, we would have brought them inside and taken care of them. But it's kind of sad that we don't know that this is happening until after.
She's in the poop on Charlotte.
Want to hear that again?
She's in the poop on Charlotte.
Okay, we're going to zip through some of these coming up, but I want to play the old bell, because I told you that you can hear things that don't exist. We are in Keith Hall, and it's all torn to pieces. It's a mess. There's nobody in the building. Stuff is everywhere. They're getting ready to demolish it. There used to be a train that went right past this particular building at one point in time to pick up students and bring them all around. And you hear somebody saying, you know, when is our next meeting? And we're talking about it. You're going to hear what sounds like to us a train bell. And it was
Meeting on Monday? 6:30?
7,
After meeting what?
2:05.
Okay. Really good at this building.
There's nothing to make that noise, nothing. There was those old fire extinguisher bells, but you would have to stand on a chair and ring it, and it still wouldn't account for that noise.
Meeting on Monday? 6:30?
7,
After meeting what?
2:05.
Okay. Really good at this building.
So we're going to jump down to the one at the bottom, because ghosts have a sense of humor. I have been unprofessional, I'll admit. The one who's talking was behind me, just far enough so that when I came around the corner of the room, I stepped aside. And when she came around the corner, I put a flashlight to her face, the old campfire stuff. So she screamed and yelled, and she's explaining this when we hear a man comment on it.
I'm going to hear you more. Turn the light and just shine up in your face. Sounds good. I'm not rustic. I'm going to hear you more. Turn the light and just shine up in your face. Sounds good. I'm not rustic.
I love that it goes sticks at we're going to play these two here, Girls Supposed to Die, because we have some debate on this. This was my very first actual formal ghost hunt at the U.S. Hotel, which we have to look up, but I think it might be open again now for ghost hunting. And all night long, I had been seeing in my head sort of a bust of a woman. And some of the rooms upstairs are still set up like the Trenton Hotel they were, with just a bed and a chest of drawers and a chair, that's it. I felt compelled to lay down on this bed and I'm holding on to the railing, and I'm talking in this, and I'm saying that she's upset, and the man says, "It us?" In the meantime, another woman was in the room, and she had a thermometer, and she measured a drop of 11 degrees in 30 seconds inside the wall. I was freezing, my neck was killing me. And what we got on the videotape, it's, okay, some people say it's got a British accent. It's a woman saying, "Oh, stop. This girl's supposed to die." Or, "This girl's not supposed to die." I don't know who's doing what. My sense, because my neck was so sore, was that I was being strangled. I was re-experiencing something that had happened to somebody. But we'll play both of these. One is a little louder than the other.
So sad. Oh, sad.
With us?
No. Oh, sad.
With us?
No.
It's really rare to get that much speech, because it's usually just a bunch of words. So we are right at the end of our time. Also at the U.S. Hotel, there was a room that had a door. When you look right across the room, there's another door. It was like an interior room. So sometimes people are frightened because they might see somebody walking by. And in this case, we have somebody who repeats what we're saying.
I want to go to this room. It goes straight through to the other side.
Okay, we'll play that one more time before you head out to the other side.
I want to go to this room. It goes straight through to the other side.
There's a lot of haunted stuff in Irwin. If you want to offer your business a location, we've made Carl your go-to person, so that he can sort it out. We can add it to the ghost tour and ghost walk. I want to thank Sharon and Haley, my husband, who's put up with me and all this. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
And the name of their group is the Grit Ghost Researchers in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Laurel. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, guys.
Something was down there sucking my energy out, so somebody was not happy. We were down there messing around and running lines and doing messing in the water and everything like that. So that was our main story of our little hunting. But we are here, I'm here in the evenings, we are evenings and weekends, and sometimes it's slow and I'll just be sitting here and I'll just kind of have this feeling of something and just kind of look over and nothing's there, but you just have these kind of feelings if you've ever had feelings, you know what I'm talking about. So that's my crazy story. So Amber used to work next door at Burger. We poached her, so she now works for us. But she says that they've been down in their basement,
Yes.
before, and
I've been down the basement many times, and then the story I heard about that basement is like if you go down that doorway, it looks like there's a little ramp. I guess they used to run coal, there's like a walkway through the whole entire building, and it supposedly goes the whole way to the hillside past the high rise, and there's a little doorway that opens up to like the railroad. I've heard stories that they used to take slaves and hide them through there and hop them on the train and get them out of here. And then I've heard that they ran coal and stuff through. If you look, if you open up that door over there, you'll see a little ramp. Nothing but rain goes through there now. There's nothing but rain goes through there now. But oh yeah, every time I've been down there, I mean, if they say that this walkway goes all the way to the hillside over past the high rise in Irwin, who knows what's back there? I mean, I've heard plenty of noises down there, and the same thing with the phone batteries. Phone batteries. I don't know if it's just because I get bad service here to begin with, but some places I go and your phone just goes from like nothing, it just goes. But
so I also know that they didn't want us to talk about like really what they had covered, because that's what they were talking about. They were going to talk about our research. But I was going to tie in some different things. Historically, this building next door, I don't know if any of you knew, or any of you guys are old timers in Irwin, but there was a grocery store where Miller's Boutique is. And they used to use the basement here as storage for a lot of the food that they would keep over there. And if you go from, there's only one entrance to the basement, which is here, but if you go all the way over to the far side of Feather's basement, there are really, really old wooden walk-in coolers still down there. They're stuffed with all kinds of garbage and all kinds of stuff. But I was like, I'm gonna throw it because I love this food. But I was like, oh my god, these are so cool. And plus we were at the time we were looking for a walk-in cooler. But of course they don't work. But they're still down there, so we definitely know for sure they had like some cold things down in those walk-in coolers. And one of the people that the investigator said that they had met while they were down here doing their investigation was Big somebody, Big Mike, Big Joe, whatever, I don't know what it is. They don't really know what his name is, so they just know it was kind of Big something. And that he wore an apron and he seems like he was a butcher at some time in his life. So we're thinking that they probably did do some of the butchering maybe downstairs, but we took it over to the market whenever they needed restock for some of their meats. Another one that they talked about was the little girl, Alice. And she said at one point that there was a woman here who wore, and it was a nice old lady that worked here pre-meadery. The woman wore an apron, had curly hair, and sometimes baked something for her. There used to be a bakery in this building, for sure, we know that as well. I talked to the lady across the street, Lois Holsegel. I think she's been there for 50 years, and she told me, yeah, there was definitely a bakery here.
The grocery store was owned by Barney Moldovan,
Yeah,
and this was Barney's donut shop.
yeah.
That's
okay.
what this was.
Yeah, there was also like another bakery, like a Belgian, I think they said some kind of like a Belgian or French bakery or something, and one of these,
Yeah, that was next.
one of these
Yeah.
storefronts here too. So, yep. I'm sorry, I don't know how much time I just took up, how much time you guys have left.
We still have
But if
6
there's any
minutes.
questions,
We still have 6 minutes, we're good.
So can we take a quick tour of the basement? Okay.
we can't. I know it's a burger, and they're our storage.
Do you think Dave would let us?
No, there's no electricity, there's water down there, they can't go.
Down their side, we can see the ramp. Somebody would get hurt on that stairs.
Yeah.
We'd have to walk through her to get down there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, no.
Does anybody have any other questions?
How do you feel being here alone?
I've never had a problem, but I have had ghost experiences outside of here. Like my mom is very receptive, and she would always do like automatic writing, like where you kind of just sit and you kind of like zone out and you hold a pencil and you could ask questions and it would do like an automatic writing. So like my family's very into it. And I've had my own, like I live in a house in Hermitage that was built in the late 1800s, and we have a ghost there. I know a lot of times people that experience ghosts they have smell. Smell is one thing. Neither me or my husband smoke. We, repainted, refurnished everything in the house, and every once in a while we'll just be sitting and chilling, and you'll get this whiff of a cigar or a cigarette or something. And sometimes the dog will just kind of sit there and stare at something, like like it's just kind of being petted real nice, So we definitely have. I am receptive to it, so I'm not scared of it. So it doesn't bother me. Yeah, I'm not scared. Are you scared, Amber?
Nope, it interests me. I get excited.
Yeah.
I do. Oh yeah, I've been in this building alone very many times. I was over there when the place was getting built. Not creepy then. When they gutted that place.
Well, I've done the, I don't know if you guys know the old hotel or the mansion, Larimer Mansion.
Oh, yeah,
right up at
that's
the top of Clay
definitely
Pike right there. I did that ghost tour 2 years ago, I think, with my mom and my sisters. Again, we're all very receptive. Had our feelings when we were there, but I went home, and as soon as I walked into our house, I walked into my kitchen, and I felt this swoosh, like this air around me just completely swirled and just dissipated. Like I think something came back with me to kind of see where I was going, what I was doing, and that maybe the ghost that is in my house. It was kind of like, okay, I'm going to leave now, or something that I immediately felt, and I had another smell experience, but it was a smell I've never smelled before. It was not my ghost, my smoke smell. It was something very different, so I definitely felt that, and felt that kind of evaporate, and was like, okay. So I'm open to it.
Any Indians?
Not here. Not anywhere else.
The Penguin.
No, I've not experienced that before.
Mom, you are a ship.
Yeah, they're pretty there.
Comments? Any sort of rebuttals? I'm ready for you. Give it to me.
Does any of your alcohol disappear? She wanted to grab a bottle. Yeah. I just but if it would help, then yes. Just checking. Yeah. So after the tour, don't forget to come back here and get your wine tasting. Because she has a lot of good flavors, so, and it'll help like all these stories really come. Yeah.
What about chocolate? Is there chocolate?
We don't have
I
ghosts.
know you're taking pictures. I
ghosts.
kind of felt something in that the back corner. Like I always sit at this table here whenever it's slow, and I kind of like have my laptop or whatever, and I always feel like there's something in that back kind of corner over there, and I'm always like, what's somebody over there? So. I know Tracy has said before that she's had issues with her legs flickering, but that's just electrical problems.
Yeah, I know. I wish we could see the basement.
I know.
On the tour.
I wish we could have done the basement, but yeah, no lights, no nothing down there, so.
Creepy.
See how many phone lines will go out then.
Yeah.
A few orbs.
Yeah, orbs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right, we ready to go? We're heading down to Flow.
heard the stories about both places when they investigated. They apparently did an investigation when it was still Botanica. That was probably about 4 to 5 years ago, I'm guessing. I've been in here for about 2.5 years, so I have my own stories to tell, but also apparently a few from before as well. So they did investigate down here. They had told you about the angry man and the dirty man in the back. They had also come across a man that apparently enjoyed hammering. And the background of this building, originally, it was a furniture store and funeral home, which I guess the combination was pretty common back then. It was like late 1800s, about 1892, if I remember the old map correctly. But so yeah, it was a combination of those two, because if you need coffins, who's going to make it but the furniture maker, right? So that's what they think. They didn't know that's what this building was when they had heard, when the sensitive had come across this man that said that he enjoyed hammering as a pastime. So we think that that's a correlation there. There's also been a number of different businesses here over the years. The last two before my business were 2 different Wiccan shops. And, the last group in here had questioned whether that would have been something that would have brought in spirits and things. I don't know. I think that's everybody's own opinion. I don't necessarily think so, but like I said, everybody's own opinion. So last year they had also said that they felt a presence of a small boy playing around up here. So I thought that was interesting that they also mentioned that about Brandy's or Cafe Supreme, because they said that he likes to run around. And I remember distinctly them talking about him playing around up here too, and also leaving and playing around in other buildings as well, like in the Borough building across the street and everything. Upstairs they said there was an angry man, like they had mentioned in the discussion. I don't think, I believe that that's the case. There's definitely some weird energy up there. When they mentioned the dark energy, that's the first time I had heard about that. But they had, them mentioning it kind of made me feel, I guess, a little bit more comfortable, because I see dark shadows peeking around corners in my apartment, and I thought I was going crazy. So it's kind of nice to know that at least somebody else validated it. So Curious Cat, that's a couple doors down, was also here for about 10 years, and Christine is the owner there. She had mentioned to me that she used to hear conversations happening in the back, in the storage area, which I've also heard. Also thought I was going crazy. So it's nice to also, again, hear that other people have heard this. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had a gentleman show up late in the day. It was probably like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And he came in asking what the shop was, and then introduced himself as somebody that had worked at Botanica when that was still open. And he gave me a warning, actually, to not go into the back. The back of this building is a garage, which apparently used to be the embalming room. And you can tell that because there's a ramp that goes up. It's about this wide, and it goes about 20 feet into the garage. But there's a door there that is padlocked now. So that door must have been not padlocked when Botanica was here, because they apparently had some access to it. And he just warned me to not go back there because there was an angry guy that was back there, an angry spirit that everybody that had worked at Botanica had encountered, apparently. Which I thought was interesting because when I'm here late at night, and this usually happens about 3 a.m., oddly enough, anywhere from 2:30 to 4, and I do work late because I'm a night owl. And I work 3 other jobs too. But there's times where it's that late at night and I feel like I'm being pushed out, that there's something back there that does not want me in here. And so I just give up and I'm like, all right, I'll come and work tomorrow then. That's fine. It's bedtime, I guess. And I just turn off all the lights and I lock the door and I try not to look in the back and, head on upstairs and I try to sleep. But yes, let's see here. You heard the EVP that they had of the knocking, the stomping. That's something that I've heard in the past as well. So it was interesting that they got that. Actually, before the presentation, I was over here trying to get ready for today, and I was in the back, and I heard the door open, but it sounded like the door opening without my bells on it. And I just was like, I had to peek out and like, did somebody open it that quietly that the bells didn't move or that softly? and there was nothing in here, so I don't know what happened. The other day I was on the phone with my mom telling her about the things that had been happening over the last month, which I guess I should start by telling you what has happened over the last month. I was coming in here every day and I was kind of just leaving a mess because I was trying to get all these projects done so that I can get my October calendar ready, and I need to make samples so that I could take pictures and so on and so forth. Well, I just like left a bunch of stuff on the table. Nothing too much, just different like paints and stuff like that. And that shelf over there that's underneath the paper towels, I came in, I left everything where it was, came in the next day, and there was papers and stuff, and those, you know, paper sharks, origami things, they were all on the floor. And I was like, okay, well maybe the shelf shifted or something last night, because nobody else has access in here, it's just me. And I was just like, all right, I don't have time to clean this up, I'm just gonna leave it, and I continued working, you know, went to bed or whatever, came back the next day, and there was stuff that I had left on the table that there should have been no reason that it fell off. It was on the floor on top of these things that I didn't pick up because I'm lazy. But it was on top of the things that I didn't pick up from the day before. And it happened again the following day with more things falling off the table. And I was just like, you know, this is fine, but this is more of a mess that I have to clean up, and this is just not fair. If you're going to knock stuff over, you just have to clean up after yourself. But it started also happening in my apartment as well. There were things falling off my spice rack. I'd be sitting in my living room, and things would just start falling off of it. Just like, okay, nothing's moving. I'm working on my computer, watching TV, and things are falling off of shelves for some reason. So again, just more mad that I have to clean up after these spirits, I guess. So anyway, I was telling my mom about all of these things that had been happening, and all of a sudden I hear like a whack on the back corner, back there by the paintings and hanging things. And I was like, hold on, Mom. And I looked over, and the unicorn dream catcher, the ribbons on the bottom were swaying back and forth. Yeah, that thing you're standing next to. So I just thought that was really strange. That's my personal experiences. But yeah, let me see if I'm forgetting anything here. Oh, and last year after the ghost walk, everything, like things like that started happening like immediately following the ghost walk. It was like they knew that they were wanting to put on a show, and things were like paintings were falling off the wall. That's why there's still like gaps in between paintings, because I just haven't gotten around to, you know, wanting to put them back up at this point. But yeah, just things like that constantly happening. Knocking, I hear the stomping, I hear doors opening with nobody coming in, or sometimes that door just likes to open on its own with nobody opening it. Definitely a lot of weird things in here in general. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? Usually I get the question of why do I still live here?
Because you're not afraid.
Honestly, I'm not getting hurt by anything, you know, aside from having to put in extra, you know, chore work. Still bitter. But yeah, it's really not that bad. I did mention to the last group that I feel like occasionally, you know, knowing the people that were in here in the business before this, and knowing my neighbors and myself, I would say that it does feel like it's kind of a detriment to your mental health, because I was doing really good with my depression. Like, I didn't have any episodes for like 8 years, and then I moved in here and it's big flare-ups, and you know, makes tough life a little tough there, and you know, got to deal with that. But I did notice it with my neighbors too, so it's not just me. We're all going through it, and it's almost at the same time too. You know, if we have depressive instances, it's happening, you know, like identical amounts of time, and we both wake up one day and it's fine, and you know, we can go and do our life like we normally do. So I don't know if that's this building, but I just feel like it's a little bit coincidental that everybody that I know that has been here has gone through that. So.
Do you have someone that lives in the building now with you?
Yeah.
Okay, and do they hear all this and see all this?
He says that he just tries to block it out. Honestly, he's just a very loud person in general, so I don't know if he would hear
avoiding
anything.
him, I don't
Well, he likes to always say that I just have death follow me everywhere. He tells me that often, actually. He's never known me to be somebody that's lost a loved one or anything like that. So he just thinks that spirits follow me all the time and focus on me, I guess. So.
Have you ever tried, like, I'm just curious, like, did you ever get mad and just say, stop, okay, you're getting on my nerves? Or have you ever been like,
it's not even mad.
Come on and sit down and let's settle this. Like, I don't know what to say.
I do actually usually have a conversation. If I'm in the middle of something and they're making me nervous, I guess, just because it's unsettling, obviously. Right. It's not scary per se, it's just unsettling. But I'm just like, listen, I know that you want attention right now. I have work to do. Like, you can come back tomorrow, everything will be done, and we can talk then or something. But that's usually how I approach it. Yeah. Even in my apartment, if it's like, if things are going on, I'm like, I need to sleep. I have to be up at 5 a.m. So you need to just knock it off for the night.
Do they listen to you?
Yeah, actually, typically. It ends up stopping and I can fall asleep pretty easily. Oh, I guess it's time yet? Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you all for coming in.
I actually go to church here. This is the oldest church in Irwin. Mr. Steiner was going to do the tour but had to leave town, so they asked for somebody else. And I said, oh, I think I can do it. This church was recommended to be built by John Irwin. He went to in Greensburg to a German church that only had a German language. So he wanted to have a service in English. So he said to his friend Jacob Hershey, we need to build a church here in Irwin. And then they built the original church on a rock, which I'll show you. Everybody actually likes looking at the rock. But they built the original church, and then there was a fire, and that was more like a log cabin kind of style, and it was red. That burnt down, and then since then, they built this, and then I think in the early 1900s, there was some additions. But part of what you're in here seeing, this was like in the area where the grip researchers saw the character that they called Charlie, where they sensed that he was happy because he got to a better place beyond, and this was sort of in the area that they saw him. Yeah, so, yeah, turn on the lights. And then here we'll go in Fellowship Hall, and I'll show you the area of Ethel and the kitchen, and then I have my own ghost story to tell. See, I didn't know I was doing this, and the researchers didn't know I was doing this, so they actually don't know my story. And well, it sort of coincides. It's interesting. Spirits that they talked about that we definitely placed right away. So if anybody's interested though, there's a picture of Jacob Hershey and Mrs. Hershey. They're the ones responsible for building the church. My kids will say they wanted the church, but I don't think any of the spirits they sensed were really Jacob Hershey. Now, over here is the kitchen. And the kitchen is where they talked about the woman that ran the kitchen, you know, like very strict, and you had to, sort of have her permission to enter it. And as soon as they said that name, a lot of us were thinking it was Minnie Heidler, or sometimes even a lady that we all knew, Mrs. Steiner, because they ran the kitchen, very strict, so we were pretty much able to place her. They also talked about a lady with gray hair that had sort of thick brown glasses and that sort of loved to be with the younger people and the children, and she comes out in baptisms, and they said that she likes to watch the baptisms and be around. And for those of us that are sort of 45 and older, most of us had a Sunday school teacher here, preschool and kindergarten. Her name was Mrs. Brown. And she was like one of those very well older, respected Sunday school teachers that taught you, here's the church, the people, the steeple, and we played blocks. And she said we played blocks, and everybody loved her. And so it really sort of makes us happy to think she's still roaming around here, because definitely one of the people that they talk about fit the description of Mrs. Brown. And she actually ended up living in a high-rise here at the end of Main Street. We all know, we all loved her, so that was sort of really fun for us to hear about this and relate to it. And another person they talk about was a gentleman that was pretty distinguished looking. I think they saw him over here in the corner. They said that for some reason they picked up, they felt that he was well educated. And when we talked to some in the older congregation, they right away thought it was Mr. Henry Good, and he was like a local banker in town to this church. And so it was interesting to hear that description. But then we're going to go downstairs because I can tell you my ghost story, which they did not know about. The group of people did not know. Footsteps, but that's not my ghost story. Is everybody here, or are we missing?
No, I think everybody's down.
Okay. Yeah. So this room here was actually originally the kitchen, and then they remodeled and when they added on, put the kitchen up there. You'll need to know that for my second story. But my first story, I don't know, probably about 18, 19 years ago, I was here doing brownies, and there was probably like 25 brownies, and we were actually getting ready for the Christmas Light Up Night Parade. They were making costumes. And, we were in the middle room there, and, they were all wound up because they had school all day, we were running around, and it was noisy for some reason. Like, everybody had energy that night, and it was so loud and noisy. So anyways, when we finally got done and packed up the girls and they're leaving, and the two other co-leaders wait outside for me. I'm in here, I had to turn all the lights off the fuse box. And I go, and right when I turned the lights off, I can hear this cold air. I can feel this cold air on the side of me. But yeah, I still didn't think much of it, and I don't think about ghosts or ever worried about anything like that. And then all of a sudden in my ear, it's true, I hear, and it's right here, and I couldn't tell if it was male or female. I hear this voice that says, "It's finally quiet in here now." And I bolted out, and this is like we just had flip phones. We didn't have flashlights or anything. I bolted out the side door, and my Sherry and Lori are out there, and they're like, "You look like you saw a ghost." I said, "I didn't see a ghost. I heard a ghost. I heard a ghost." I said, "Let's go." So, and it's my church, I'm responsible for it. So I go home and I start worrying about my church, and I'm like, they were so noisy, and I really probably didn't hear a ghost. Like, what if somebody snuck in there and hiding in there and broke into our church? Not that, we don't have any money, but you just don't want anything to happen to your church. So I go home and I leave my kids with my husband. I call the police, the Irwin cops. And they said, okay, well, they're probably thinking, what does this woman want me to do? And I called them, but they met me at the door, and they had their flashlights, and they come through me, and nobody was here, nobody at all. So we did double check the building to make sure, and I'm like, I heard what I heard, and I've never quite heard anything quite like that before, and not since, but it was definitely here, it was cold, and it was right there. And what's interesting, and I didn't even know I was going to be doing this tour to help Tom out, but what was interesting in this grip they talked about, and it was sort of in this area of an officious type character, spirit that they saw here, that sort of didn't mind people being here, but were happy to see people go. And what they talked about in the report was they couldn't tell whether it was a male or female. They couldn't give it a gender. And that's exactly that voice I heard, that whisper. I couldn't tell you if it was male or female. It just was, it's fine, I'm quiet, you're not. And it was right there in that fuse box. Now the other part that the grip people talk about, and they would not have known this at all. They talk about, this was the original kitchen, but they talk about in this area seeing a man in his, 40s or 50s, sort of in 70s dress, attire. And what they did not know, Reverend Coyle was our preacher then in the late 60s and the 70s, and he actually lived in the house connected to the church. But he was a very compassionate, very giving man, and very kind. He would take people in, especially during bad weather. He would feed them, and he would let them sleep here at night. And in the 70s, I think there seemed to be a lot of people that needed kind of help like that, but he did that. And there's no way Grip wouldn't have known that there could be, actually a spirit here eating. But he did. He would bring them in and let them sleep here. So. And one other little incident, I should have brought it down, but I'm not going up in the attic by myself, not tonight. But we have the original sign that used to be out in front of the church. There was a bad, I'm not sure what year it was it 1950 or 55? We had a terrible, terrible blizzard here, and I guess it was
51.
Or 51, yeah. But we were actually one of the refuge centers that a lot of people came and stayed, and the Red Cross put up the cots or whatever we had at the time. But a lot of people came here and ate and stayed for how many days. So, but we have the original sign up in the attic, but I don't know, someone can be brave and go up with me and get it.
Any other questions? Any other questions? No? Okay, I guess I'm going on.
Okay.
Which way do we go out? This
Oh, you're
way?
gonna go out that door, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Upstairs is also reclaimed from churches and the old train station that was up on the hill between North Irwin and Irwin. So I guess it's possible that spirits can be attached to other things and follow them to their new homes. So that's a possibility too. Some of the recent things, and by recent I'm talking like within the last 30 years that have been noticed here, when this place, right before it was Brandy's, and as it turned into Brandy's, they used to have 4 or 5 pool tables down here. And the employees used to complain that upon opening in the morning and at night after they went through, made sure nobody was here, and were closing, they would go back upstairs, finish doing their cleaning, and they would hear like sounds of somebody playing pool, breaking pool balls, all kind of noise. They'd hurry up and run down thinking that somebody was down here, and the lights were off and there wasn't even any pool balls on the table. So that was one of the weird ones. Our current food and beverage manager, Ralph, who's been here probably 25 years, on several occasions when he's sitting in the office, his desk and computer and stuff are on the wall opposite of the door. So he'd be sitting there thinking somebody's joking around with him. The lights would shut off in the office. So it would happen 2 or 3 times in a row. He would run over, shut the office door, and it would happen again. Usually just one time after he shut the door, but after he would check and make sure that there was no breakers or anything, he would realize that like the switch was actually shut off. And that again is another thing that's never been able to be explained, but it's happened on several occasions. Hoping it'll happen to me at some point, but I'm waiting for it, so it'll probably never happen, because I guess it waits and whatever is there doing it probably waits until you're not trying to see it happen. Quite a few occasions, this is probably going back still 30 years, we've had clients, customers, and employees when they first start, where they'd either be in back corner of this room down by the stage or directly above it in the dining room. Like the last, apparently there was like booths back there at that time, but they'd come out of there after they went in for something real quick and say, who's the guy in the back corner? And they'd always comment about him being dressed funny. So apparently it was a tall, skinny gentleman who was nicely dressed, usually had a vest on and a bow tie, which I question too, because it's not really attire for this generation. But at least 4 to 5 different people have commented that that was probably somebody named Lefty who died somewhere between 40s and 50s, who apparently died in this building somehow. I don't know all the stories, and I guess the paranormal investigators have tried to do the history on it and find out more about him. They did come up with a picture, and he was a tall, skinny guy with in the picture he has a bow tie, but I don't see how any of the people here would have seen that picture, so that's still kind of creepy that they made that association. What notes do I have here? That one of the most recent goofy things we had seen is when we first started remodeling upstairs. We painted, did a bunch of stuff, and there was an old, like an antique beer sign. I have no idea how it was, but we took that one down, put up one of these newfangled LED lights that you can write on and put your beer lists and stuff on. And there was 3 of us that were still sitting up there discussing what all needed to be done. And typically when something falls off a wall like that's flat, it would just kind of fall flat down. Well, this thing literally, it looked like somebody was behind it. It probably went 4 to 5 feet out and landed face down, like far away from the wall. And it was just one of those kind of hair-raising chills where you look at each other and nobody wanted to say anything. Like, did anyone else see that? And we were looking on the walls behind it, making sure nobody else was in the building pounding or fixing anything else, and there was no one else there but the 3 of us. So we haven't put that sign back up in that spot. Just, I don't know if we're afraid to, but we just figured we'll find another spot for it just in case. And we put the old, I believe it's what's the old Forbes Field sign that we put back there, like a picture of the old Forbes Field, just because it's an original, and it's probably 50, 60 years old, and we'll let it stay there. And real recently, it was 2 weeks ago, the Steel City Medium was at the Lamp next door, and they came over here for their party afterwards, and I was talking to her mother, who was telling me that when she went in there, she saw a young girl who was supposedly burned in one of the area fires and had died, and she was talking to her, and she said she was dressed nicely but still had the scars and stuff on her face. But I guess when she came over afterwards to join everybody that was at the party, she had mentioned that the little girl followed her over here, and then that little girl, I guess, essentially comes back and forth between backstage at the Lamp and one of our back hallways back here. And I guess there's other people that she plays with. One potentially, I think, is a little boy that hangs out up at the Borough building. That I guess the little girl was all excited that somebody was actually able to see her and communicate with her, other than the other little boy. And the most creepy of all of it is we had a cook here whose name was Bill, and probably about 5 months ago he passed away unexpectedly in his sleep. He was only in his late 50s. But 2 of the paranormal groups, when they were looking around in the back hallway between our walk-in coolers and beer coolers, they were approached by something that told them, "You're not supposed to be here, get out of this area." And Bill was known for being a stickler for the rules and always making sure people weren't going anywhere they weren't supposed to be. And not that any of us have seen him, but that's the only thing we could think of, is that since he spent most of his time here working, that he may have just, after he passed, he left his apartment and just decided to take up residency in one of the halls back here. But from our things, we've never seen anything violent. No one's ever been hurt that can be attributed to anything paranormal. Just a lot of little weird things, noises, bangs, doors closing unexpectedly that were wedged open, or doors opening that are on closures that shouldn't let them open. Sure, some can be explained by breezes or drafts or whatever, but there's some that you just kind of, okay, I don't know what that was, and we're not going to question it, because sometimes it's better not to. That's really about all that we've noticed here. Anyone have any questions about anything?
You're all excused. Have a beautiful night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.